What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one never knows best, and today I want to bring you a video that's about Dragon Ball FighterZ that I think will be a little interesting for some of you, maybe not so much for others, but I thought it would be kind of fun to go back and look at one of the very first Dragon Ball FighterZ videos that I made 6 years ago in 2017. So back then at E3 during the Xbox Showcase, we got the official reveal for Dragon Ball FighterZ, which was slated to release in January of next year, January 26th, 2018. I'll never forget that day. But yeah, obviously I was super hype. I was very excited. I was still very young in my YouTube career, and very young in the literal sense as well, which you will hear in my voice. But I ended up making a prediction video speculating what the roster of Dragon Ball FighterZ would look like, and I feel like this would be a banger of a video, and it ended up being like one of my biggest videos ever, even to this day. Honestly, it's got almost 200,000 views. But June 18th, 2017, I thought this would be interesting to talk about because there was a lot of speculation on the roster, and a lot of people thought that this game would have a huge roster because these are people who were more familiar with like the Tenkaichi games and not necessarily like a more serious fighting game, and they weren't familiar with like Arc System Works. Not that I really was either, but I understood going into this that this was going to be a game that's going to launch with like 20 to 30 characters, which was kind of a hot take at the time. A lot of people didn't think so, and if you look back now, I'm sure a lot of people are agreeing with me in the comments, but I definitely had more than my fair share of people on Twitter and in the YouTube comments that were saying I'm crazy or I'm tripping. But I thought it'd be fun to go down memory lane, watch this video, react to it, and see how accurate some of my predictions were. Some of which I remember a couple of them being like almost spot on, and I promise I had no inside information about this before making this video. This was just straight off the dome, just predictions, and I was just really excited to talk about the game, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So let's go ahead and check this video out because I think,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome back
it'll be
to
fun.
the Nerd Corner. I'm your host, LotusAsakura, never knows best, and
The intro was a little bit different back then.
Today's video, we're talking Dragon Ball FighterZ roster speculation.
Actually, you know what? And I remember this video took me so long to make, and I had a really bad PC back then, and I rendered the entire video in 1080p 60, which for my PC took like 17 hours. I had to leave it on overnight, and I messed something up. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I really screwed something up, and I had to re-render the whole video. So
theories.
I just remember that just now. That hurts my heart because I put a lot of editing in it. I worked really hard on this video back then.
Next year, this game is not going to have a huge roster. I can guarantee you that.
And that's what I was saying. A lot of people thought that this roster had to be big because Tenkaichi 3 had over 100 characters, and I was like, yo, this ain't gonna be Tenkaichi 3.
Multiple reasons.
All right, let's get into it. What was my list looking like back then?
On this roster, now we've already got the first 6 characters 100% confirmed because we've seen them in
so we had Cell, Goku,
we saw them at
Gohan, Frieza,
those 6
Vegeta,
characters
right?
are Goku, Vegeta, Teen Gohan, Cell, Frieza, and Majin Buu. Fat Majin Buu, mind you, and that's important to know, and we'll touch on that later. But yes, these 6 characters we've already seen in action. We know that they're 100% going to be in the game. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see their base forms.
Yeah, so I was right about this, but I was like, I don't think we're going to see the base form. Little did I know that they would eventually show up as DLC, but I was like, I don't know, man. They start off in Super Sense. So I think that's just going to be how it is. Like, base forms just aren't going to be in the game. And technically they weren't until they were.
When they're actually in game.
Bro, look how different the UI for the game was back then. It makes me nostalgic looking at it.
This game. So after our first 6, moving on at number 7, we have Future Trunks.
Future Trunks, of course, that was a lock. That's the obvious one. That's the gimme. You already know that's my boy, and I made him since the very beginning, like since day one.
I have no doubt in my mind that he's a shoo-in to be on this roster. He's very iconic, one of the most popular in the entire franchise. I don't think you can make a Dragon Ball
game. Also, look, you see that like Vegeta was like flashing red when he was getting hit. I don't think that was actually in the game when it finally released.
Krillin, and Yamcha. Now,
bing, bing,
Yamcha, I don't necessarily think
again
should be in the game because I personally don't care about Yamcha. That's just my own bias. But
I don't know why I was hating on Yamcha. I'm not even like a Yamcha hater. In fact, I liked Yamcha a lot as a kid. I just felt like, you know, if they're gonna leave anyone out, because I expected the roster to be, like I said in this video, I was like, it's gonna be like 20, 25 characters. So like, if someone's gonna get left out, Yamcha might get left out. Of course, he wasn't. He did make it in the game, and he made it on my list. But I was like, hey, bro, if they gotta cut some corners, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna cry if Yamcha don't make it in the game. Also, I don't know why I expected the Goku to re-jump for a second just now. That's just not how that.
Maybe not so much Yamcha, but
anyway.
I kind of just moving on to slots 12 and 13. I'm thinking that we're gonna see Android 17 and Android 18. I don't know why I said Android so funny, but Android 17 and Android 18, pretty important characters if you ask me. I don't know how high they rank in terms of popularity, but I know personally I'm a fan of the androids. I think they played a significant role enough in the series to be included in the game.
Play 18 to this day.
And I think that we could.
Hey, whoa, run that back. What did that boy say?
Since this is a 3v3 tag team game, we might even see something along the lines of a dual super or ultimate between the androids, Android 17.
I mean, it's not like that's a super crazy prediction or nothing, but just another one of them things with a boy with you and Noodle. You know what I'm saying? That boy, he ain't miss.
in 18, because we know that they have done synchronized attacks in the past, and in other games we've seen them work together.
Yeah, it's
so
like if you just know about those characters, like it just made sense. Now, admittedly, I was thinking more along the lines of where if you had them on the same team, they do a super together, and that kind of still does exist, because obviously 18 releases it with the base roster and 17 doesn't. 17 is like a puppet, so to speak, with Android 18, and they have, or level 3 has them both in it. And if you swap out, if you put Krillin on the team, then Krillin shows up in the level 3. But it was still right, and they did still make it into the game. And then Android 17 was a solo character released at the end of season 1 as DLC, so that was cool.
May or may not be in, and I'll discuss kind of my thoughts on these characters. So the next 3 characters I have on this list are Gotenks, Vegito, and Gogeta. Now,
I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised, but it makes sense because of Dragon Ball Super and everything. But we'll touch on Dragon Ball Super later in this video. But your boy called it Gotenks as opposed to Goten and Trunks individually. I thought Vegito and Gogeta would release in the game in their Super Saiyan forms, like at launch. I thought maybe they'd be unlockable or something, or I don't know. But yeah, they obviously are both in the game in their Super Saiyan Blue forms later on as a DLC, but I kind of expect them to be in the base roster.
Between Vegito
but
and
if I had thought harder about obviously the potential to make money and sell season passes and DLC, I should have expected them to not be in the game and to be purchasable later on, to be honest.
Gogeta, we may or may not see them. We may only see one of them, and if we only see one of them, I would probably lean more towards Vegito because I think he's actually the
and he was the one that we got first in
personally I side with Gogeta. But here's my thing with Gotenks.
Even though I like Gogeta more.
Verse. I think Gotenks has a higher chance of being in the game than Goten and Trunks individually. One, because he only takes up 1 slot, and Goten and Trunks take up 2 slots, whereas I don't think those characters deserve their own individual slots simply because they aren't super important, they aren't super relevant, they aren't super...
Mind you, I love Goten and Trunks, so don't get it twisted. Again, a lot of the things I'm saying are just coming from the mindset of like, oh, this game's gonna launch with like most likely less than 30 characters, and so are characters like Goten and Trunks important enough on their own to be individual characters that take up a roster slot? And I didn't think that they were. I love Goten and Trunks, I always have, and I always hated the fact that Goten, Trunks, and Gotenks as a fusion were kind of like wasted potential because they have all this power and they're so cool and they're so strong, whatever, and then they kind of just relegated to just being background characters who just, you know, they get to live their lives as kids and just, you know, getting a little hijinks and stuff. But I always wanted to see more from them, and like I'm one of those people that was like really frustrated that they just were never aging in Super and stuff. And now, you know, if you're reading the Super manga, like they actually, and if you saw Superhero, they do look their actual age now. They have grown up, they are taller and stuff. But that was something that I always wanted. But I digress.
Vegito is definitely a unique character that I think they can have some fun with when it comes to like the Spirit Sword.
Oh boy, and did they ever have fun?
The final Kamehameha.
And they gave him both of those moves.
There's a lot of fun things and cool things that I think they could do with Vegito. Vegito's
yes, indeed, they did.
Probably the most popular fusion now.
They had a lot of fun making
so
Vegito.
I don't think it'd be too difficult.
A little bit too much fun, if you ask me.
Or it'd be too unheard of
just a touch.
Vegito to.
All right, now this next part, I'm about to get into the whole Dragon Ball Super thing, which again was like somewhat controversial, for lack of a better word, or somewhat of a hot take going into this, but like I feel like what I'm about to say makes sense. But
we had some characters from Dragon Ball Super.
You'll hear in just a moment.
I wasn't too confident about Super being included in this game simply because of the title, Dragon Ball FighterZ, with a big Z at the end. They capitalized.
You know what I'm saying?
It's there. It's very highly emphasized. It's almost like they're saying Dragon Ball FighterZ,
which is how a lot of people still pronounce it to this day, which is always kind of fun to me. But it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, like they put so much emphasis on it, it seemed like it was going to be a Dragon Ball Z game, so I wasn't sure if we were going to get Dragon Ball Super characters in it unless they were added in later as DLC, which obviously ended up being the case for some. But you know what I'm saying, I didn't expect us to get, you know, a character like Beerus, for example, in the base roster off rip. However, we will talk a bit about that in here just a
Dragon
moment.
Ball FighterZ, but you get what I mean.
So I shouldn't say I didn't expect. I wasn't sure
than anything else. So with that being said, before we go,
that being said, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video, but you could technically classify Beerus as a Dragon Ball Z character because he's introduced in Battle of Gods, which is a Dragon Ball Z movie, and I think that was my justification because I'm pretty sure Beerus is on this list. And that's because I was like, he's technically a Dragon Ball Z character, not a Super character. But yeah.
I don't expect to see any characters from the original Dragon Ball, so the time when Goku was a kid. I don't expect.
Which is also true because we didn't get any of those until we got even GT Goku's not OG Kid Goku. We got Roshi, but you know.
I expect to see any GT characters, and I expect to see very few characters from Super. However, I do have a few characters from Super that I do think have a high chance of being in the game. Most importantly and notably being Beerus. Beerus has become
makes sense, and he in fact did make it.
I think we'll also see Hit. I think Hit is another character who's very unique, and Arc System could have.
And he did make it. Doesn't really have the pure progression, and Hit didn't end up being the type of character that I expected him to be, but he definitely is unique even within the roster of itself. Like just the way that he fights is pretty different. And he's like the boxer archetype of the game. But yeah, I mean, Hit to me is one of the coolest characters in Super. He's probably the coolest character that has been introduced in Super outside, like in the anime, right? And he's one of my favorite characters to watch in the game, and I also really love playing him. I didn't play him at the start. That's because my brain was too small. But,
I just think that they could expound upon that important character. And moving on, at number 19, we have Goku Black. Goku Black is
who also made it in, and then I also called him being in his Rose form. So like, even though I wasn't super sure that super characters were gonna make it in the game, I was like, if they do, these are the ones that are gonna make it. And it's just like, when you look back at this video, it's like, all right, bro, you like, nah, you knew someone at Bandai, or you got to play the game, or you saw something. Like, nah, this was just. And like, I feel like some of this is kind of obvious, but like, I could definitely see somebody looking back at this video and be like, nah, bro, you knew something.
The character from the Dragon Ball Super series, the Future Trunks arc was arguably the best arc in Super.
I don't even think it's arguable. I think it just was. Enjoyed it. Like, the ending wasn't great, but I think the Future Trunks arc in Super is the best arc in Super.
With that said, I do believe that if we do get Goku Black, we might only get him in his Rose transformation. I think that's.
And this is also kind of funny because back then, we were. In season 1 of the game, some of us were getting kind of hype and speculating and like half expecting that base form Goku Black was going to get added as a DLC at some point, and he obviously never did, and it seems kind of silly now. But then again, not so much, because base form Goku and Vegeta made it in the game, so why not base form Goku Black? And obviously base form Goku Black was a pretty popular character and enjoyable character in like Xenoverse 2, so like it wouldn't have been the craziest thing, you know what I'm saying? But it just
something that
obviously that never came to be.
But I think
it was even like a fake leak or something that came out at one point, but I think that just ended up being like a Photoshop or a mod or something.
All right, with that, or movie characters.
Right, and then I started getting into like the specials and movies.
Broly and Bardock. Now, I personally,
who ended up releasing together as the very first DLC pack in season 1 of the game. They weren't base roster like I kind of half expected and hoped that they would be, especially Bardock, because ended up being a Bardock main from day one. I played Bardock in every Dragon Ball game that he's in. He's always been one of my favorite characters for a couple of reasons, but one in particular, I love characters who wear headbands, bro. And Bardock's headband is so sick, and the lore behind it. Anyway, I digress. It's another, you know what I'm saying, pretty good prognostication from your boy.
And coming in at number 22, we have Janemba. Now,
Janemba, yeah, another character who wasn't base roster but DLC. Like, I'm realizing now that these characters, I'm like, these should have been obvious picks to me that they would end up being DLC characters. I don't know how I didn't predict that, to be honest.
And when I say Janemba, I do mean Super Janemba. So I do think Super Janemba has.
Yeah, and then him being Super Janemba, I think was obvious.
These next three,
the next few,
are iffy with me for a couple of reasons. So the next three I have on the list are Super Buu, Kid Buu, and Adult Gohan. Yeah, I don't know how you.
Yeah, so I was kind of like hesitant on whether or not Adult Gohan was going to be in the game because they were putting so much focus, I feel like, on Teen Gohan, since he was one of the first characters that were revealed for the game. And I was like, I don't know, bro, they might just only have Teen Gohan, because again, you got to understand, even though I love Adult Gohan more personally than I think I enjoy Teen Gohan, especially when you call him Mystic Gohan, because I always thought the Mystic Gohan sounded really, really cool. Most of the time we just call him Adult Gohan or Ultimate Gohan. I always like the word Mystic more, it just sounds cooler, but that's just me. And then I was like, Kid Buu will probably make it in. Adult Gohan will probably make it in, but I won't be surprised if they don't. And Super Buu is kind of like a toss-up, but I was like, I don't know, man. We might only get one Buu form and one version of Gohan. And, you know, again, DLC is a thing, so we could always get more as DLC. Obviously, Super Buu never ended up making it in, but Gohan and Kid Buu did.
You guys would feel about that one?
All right, and I think the last 5 are characters that are like, they're probably not going to make it in the game, but these are like movie characters or like special characters that like could be added in, maybe as DLC, maybe as just like a surprise. Like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I was like, they probably not going to be in the game, or at least not at launch, but let's just get the roster up to 30, because like I said, I expected it to be 20 to 25. It was 24 at launch, and I was like, let's give it 5 more just to say we got a nice even 30. And
Gohan that I felt. Now these are definitely characters that I feel have the lowest chance out of everyone that I've named so far.
And I don't think any of these characters I'm about to name ended up making it into the game. No, because I'm pretty sure one of them is Cooler, and Cooler ends up as a season 1 DLC. But other than that,
being included in this game, and I don't actually expect to see any of them in it. But those 5 characters are Deborah, Pycon, Cooler, Bojack, and Whis. Now I'll start off with Whis because it's I would still love to get these characters in the game. That's the thing about Dragon Ball FighterZ, that if they want to make more content, they could still easily add so many characters. Dabra, Pycon, Bojack. There's movies and special characters and GT characters they can still add. Omega Shenron. We don't have Omega Shenron in the game. Like, are you serious? Individual Super Saiyan 4s, Super Saiyan Gods, and don't even get me started if we start talking about manga stuff, which I don't expect them to do. But like, there's still so many more characters they could add to the game. And like, yeah, it's like, okay, the super crazy big money makers with like Ultra Instinct and the fusions and the Super Saiyan Blues. Like, yeah, you've already done those, and like that's the biggest thing. But like, I think people would still go crazy for some of these characters, especially just because it's like, oh, more content for DBFZ. But what do I know? probably the one that's the most surprising to you because he's a popular and prominent character in the series right now in Dragon Ball Super. The reason why I don't think Whis has the greatest chance of being in the game is because we have not seen a lot from him, and even though they could have a lot of fun developing him, and even though we've seen him in games like Xenoverse, I just don't really see Whis as that much of a prominent fighter. Like, he's obviously very strong, he's stronger than Beerus, that much we know.
And so that basically my reasoning for like Whis not being in the game is that where it's like this game we could already tell was very much like a love letter to Dragon Ball, right? Where all the characters' moves and animations, everything like that, were taken directly from the anime and the manga. And at that point, and even really up to now, we hadn't seen what Whis is really capable of and like what he really does. And like he was in Xenoverse, but Xenoverse just like made up a bunch of stuff for characters, right? Including Whis and even Vados, who are playable in the game. Champa too. There's a bunch of characters in Xenoverse too that we don't really get to see them really show their stuff, but they're playable in that game. And I was like, that's really not going to be the case in this game, because this game is taking stuff that's actually from the source material and turning it into special moves, combos, animations, and whatnot. And I was like, they can't really do that for Whis, so he's probably not gonna make it in the game. But I think those were all the characters that I ended up predicting for the roster, and I'd say for the most part, I was pretty spot on. I see we have some stuff here at the end. What am I talking about here at the end?
Fun with him, like the spit that turns people to stone. He has
talking
a sword.
But why do I see like Kid Buu, 18, and Whis and stuff showing up here at the end?
He's really unique. See,
I was just going back through the whole roster.
Vegeta, Teen Gohan, Cell, Frieza, Majin Buu, Future Trunks, Piccolo, Tien, Krillin, Yamcha, Android 17, Android 18, Goten, Gogeta, Beerus, Hit, Goku Black, probably in his Super Saiyan Rose form, Bardock, Broly, Super Janemba, Super Buu, Kid Buu, Adult Gohan, and then rounding off the list with 5 characters that I think have a chance but are highly unlikely: Deborah, Pycon, Cooler, Bojack, and Whis.
So yeah, and then I guess if we take a look real quick at what the base roster for fighters ended up looking like at launch, you can see what we actually ended up getting was Majin 21 was a huge surprise for everyone. This was obviously she's an original character to the game that like no one had any idea was coming, right? So Majin 21, but you have Tien, Yamcha, Gohan, Krillin, Goku, Frieza, 18, Kid Buu, Captain Ginyu I didn't expect, Nappa I didn't expect, Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, which I didn't expect, Trunks, Vegeta, Beerus, Cell, 16 was definitely a surprise as well. Like characters like 16, Ginyu, and Nappa, I'm just like, does anyone care? But like I underestimated, especially when it comes to Ginyu and Nappa, how unique they can make those characters and types of fun that they would have, and the archetypes that they create with that, you know what I'm saying? And then Gotenks, Piccolo, Teen Gohan, 21, Buu, Hit, and Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. So I'd say I got a pretty good score, all things considered, considering that we had like basically no other information about what the roster was going to look like other than those 6 characters. I think I did pretty good. So I don't know, man. I thought that this would be a decently fun video to take a look back on and then like have myself record my reaction and then go back and look on it and stuff. And yeah, there's other stuff I want to do when it comes to this, like reactions to old videos and whatnot. I want to get back to doing, I think I only did 1 or 2 episodes of it, but I want to go back and like rewatch like Dragon Ball FighterZ matches from like 2018, 2019, like seasons 1 and 2, and like relive it with you guys and with some of you live it for the first time, experience it for the first time, because a lot of you guys weren't around back then, so you guys don't really know like the rivalry and the storylines and everything that y'all missed out on between Sonic Fox and Goichi, and then Kazunoko getting in the mix, and Hook up there, and then Femrich and Moke, and Nokami and Nakil and Wawa pulling up on the scene, and like back when Leffen was still the best player in Europe, and you know, like it was a good time, man. It was a good time. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can stay tuned for all this content I'm bringing you. With all that being said, that's pretty much off today. Remember, it can happen to you. Swing the bat. Later.